Our look at the geographic grid system begins with latitude. Latitude measures distance between the equator and the north and south poles, things that you probably have heard of, the equator and the north and south poles. It indicates how far north or south a given point is, and is measured in degrees from 0 to 90. This is a system of counting, but it's a limited system of counting because you can count from 0 to 90 in latitude. There is no 91. The reason it's in degrees is because this is something called angular distance, which means it's all calculated out using degrees, like right angles, for example. Where do we start when we're going to count? 0. That's correct. The equator literally means equal. This is a Latin word. It has two functions in latitude. First, it splits the Earth into two equal halves, hence the name equator or equal. And second, this is the starting point for latitudinal counting, that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on until we reach 90. Because of this, the equator gets a designation of 0 degrees latitude. And the way that's written is exactly the way you see that down at the bottom of the slide. The number 0 right here, and then this little symbol right here to the upper right, which represents the word degrees. Instead of writing degrees over and over and over, you just make that little symbol and it means degrees. Like if it was 76 degrees outside, you'd write 76, and then that little circle next to it, that means degrees. Okay, so I just drew the Earth. That's what that circle is supposed to be. The equator is going to be our starting place for both things, splitting the Earth in half and counting. I just put the equator on there with that kind of greenish colored line, and you can see that I put 0 degrees on there, indicating that that is the equator. That's a designation for the equator. But notice when I did that, it splits the Earth into two equal halves. The red line indicates one half, and the bronze line indicates another half, sort of the top and the bottom, if you will, although geographically we wouldn't call it that. Now I just put the equator, the red line, with the 0 degrees, on a map of our planet. What I want you to see is this. Those red arrows indicate the following. Everything north of the equator is in what's known as the northern hemisphere. In Greek, hemisphere literally means half of a sphere. A sphere is a ball. So in other words, half of the Earth. This would be the northern half of the Earth. And then those bronze arrows are indicating this. This is every place south of the equator. Every place south of the equator is in the, can you guess? Southern hemisphere. Excellent, the southern half. Let's practice latitude a little bit. I'm going to point at a country. You're going to tell me which hemisphere it's in. The United States. What hemisphere is the United States in? That would be the northern hemisphere. Excellent. Argentina. Which hemisphere is Argentina in? Answer is southern hemisphere. What about Iran? Iran is in the northern hemisphere, and then Botswana. Botswana is in the southern hemisphere. Excellent. Okay, so the equator is going to split the Earth into two equal halves, and it's also the starting point for our counting system. So I just put 0 degrees on that green line, on the circle that I drew that represents the Earth. That line is the equator, 0 degrees. And remember, everything north of the equator is in the northern hemisphere. Now I put another line that cuts perpendicular across the equator. And notice at the top of that line, you can see I wrote 90 degrees. 90 degrees is as far north as you can go in the northern hemisphere. So in other words, if you were at 0 and you started to walk into the northern hemisphere and you headed straight north, no matter where you are on the planet, remember this planet's a sphere, it's a ball. What's going to happen is you're going to start counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on until eventually you reach 90 degrees, as far away in the northern hemisphere as you could possibly be from the equator. That place gets a designation of 90 degrees north, written like that. 90 degree symbol, capital N, indicating the northern hemisphere. It's called 90 degrees because it's at a right angle. As you might be able to see right here, there's a right angle. Okay, that's the right angle. All right? That place has a name, of course. We call it the North Pole. So the North Pole is as far north as you can go on planet Earth. Then, if we were at the equator and we began to go south, so we leave 0 and we start counting into the southern hemisphere, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Eventually, we will reach 90 degrees, as far away from the equator as you can be in the southern hemisphere. That place gets a designation of 90 degrees south, and it's written like that. 90 degree symbol, capital S period, indicating 90 degrees in the southern hemisphere. Once again, it's because it's at a right angle from the equator. That place has a name also, as you're probably aware. This is called the South Pole. Okay, so there are other lines of latitude, of course, not just the equator or the North and South Poles. Here, I just put some on. Now, you don't put every single line of latitude, because if you did that, the map would be completely covered in lines. You wouldn't be able to see anything. So you have to do a little interpolation. Lines of latitude are called parallels because they are indeed parallel to each other, which means they always remain the same distance apart, which, in case you're interested, is 69 miles. So there you go. I'm not going to test you on that, but I'm telling you. And now you can see on our original diagram, not only do we have the equator and the North and South Poles, but I put some other lines on there. 30 degrees north, 60 degrees north, 30 degrees south, 60 degrees south. It doesn't matter which lines they are, 1 degree north, 18 degrees south. It doesn't matter what they are. These are all parallels, lines of latitude. And in fact, they're angles away from the equator. This is the first half of our geographic grid.